You've probably had an argument today. Not a real one. One that happened entirely in your head, with someone who has no idea it even took place. You said the perfect thing. They finally understood. Or maybe they didn't, so you got to say it again, a little sharper this time. None of it happened. And yet you felt it. Your chest tightened. Your jaw clenched. You might still feel oddly annoyed at someone who did nothing wrong today. Most people call this overthinking. That word is too small for what's actually happening. Because by the end of this, you'll realize you're not replaying a conversation. You're replaying a version of yourself. Why would a brain built for survival waste this much energy on things that never happened? Evolution doesn't usually protect wasteful habits. So if imagination keeps doing this, it's doing something for you. The obvious answer is control. That answer is correct. It's also the smallest part of the story. It starts as a rehearsal for control, asterisk, asterisk. Real life doesn't let you pause a moment and try it again. A conversation happens once, then it's gone. Your imagination doesn't have that limit. So when something feels unresolved, your brain quietly reopens the file. Like a document you forgot to save, one it keeps re-editing because it never got a version it could accept. But if this were only about control, the replaying would stop the second you won the imagined argument. It doesn't. Some people run the same scene for years. Something bigger is underneath this. Here's the part almost nobody notices. You think you're imagining the future or replaying the past. You're doing neither. You're protecting your identity. Every time you rehearse a comeback or a version of events where you looked strong instead of frozen, you're not solving the situation. You're editing the story you tell yourself about who you are. Your imagination isn't a courtroom for other people. It's a courtroom where you're the one on trial, and the verdict is never allowed to be final. A man runs into his ex at a coffee shop. She says something short, polite but short. He says something forgettable back. The whole thing lasts 4 seconds. By the time he's home, he's had the conversation 11 more times in his head. Calm in one version, devastating in another, her regretting everything in a third. None of it happened. All of it exhausted him. Because he wasn't finishing a conversation with her. He was trying to finish a feeling about himself, that he didn't matter to her anymore. No imagined line of dialogue can actually answer that. So the scene keeps reopening, like knocking on a locked door, because some part of you still believes someone's in there who can finally answer it. But here's where it gets stranger than rehearsal. You'd assume if you're rehearsing something, you're preparing to actually do it. That's not always true. Vivid imagination has a strange side effect. Your brain can start treating the rehearsal as if it already happened. A teenager wants to ask someone out. He imagines it constantly. The walkover, the opening line, her face when he says it. In the best version, it goes perfectly. And somewhere in that repetition, something quietly shifts. His nervous system gets a small hit of relief. The same relief he'd feel if he'd actually done it. His motivation drops. Not because he got scared. Because part of him already got the reward. He never asks her. Your brain isn't always using imagination as fuel for action. Sometimes it's using it as a substitute. And here's the contradiction most people never catch. You assume you keep replaying a scenario because you want it resolved. Watch closer, and a different motive shows up. If the scene actually ended, if you found peace with it and just stopped thinking about it, you'd have to answer a harder question. Are you actually over this, or were you just avoiding finding out? As long as the scenario keeps running, you never have to answer that. So the replaying isn't always the mind seeking closure. Sometimes it's the mind avoiding the moment closure gets tested. Someone rehearsing exactly what they'd say if they ran into an old friend isn't preparing for that moment. They're avoiding finding out what happens if they just call them. The imagined version is safer. It can't fail. It can't go quiet. It can't confirm a thing they're actually afraid of. That too much time has already passed. So where does this pattern actually come from? Not everyone runs this simulation with the same intensity. Some people barely rehearse anything. Others narrate entire relationships that live only in their heads. The difference usually traces back further than people expect. If speaking the honest thing out loud as a kid got you dismissed, laughed at, or shut down, you learned something without ever deciding to learn it. The only place honesty has no consequences is inside your own head. A daughter lost her father before she said the thing she meant to say. Not because it was complicated. She just assumed there'd be time. Years later, she still narrates conversations with him. Some nights, she tells him what she's proud of. Some nights, she apologizes for things that were never her fault. It's not that she can't move on. It's that this conversation is still the only stage where the truth gets to exist at all. For her, imagination isn't a symptom. It's the last room left where honesty is allowed to live. Now here's the twist almost nobody catches. Some people don't rehearse conflict or grief. They rehearse an entirely different life. A woman lies awake at 1 a.m., not thinking about a person at all. She's picturing herself accepting a promotion she doesn't have yet at a company she doesn't work for, being told by someone she respects that she was right all along. It plays out in full detail. The room, the handshake, the exact sentence she's been waiting years to hear. None of it exists. Psychologists have a name for this, a possible self. The version of you that hasn't happened yet, but still quietly shapes how you feel about the version of you that does. When real life gives that possible self nowhere to live, imagination builds a house anyway. That daydream isn't escapism. It's a status report. Your mind, in the only language it has, telling you some part of your identity is starving for proof that it's real. And here's the reveal underneath all of it. You assumed the person in your imagined scenario was the point. The ex, the old friend, the father, the boss who never said it. They were never the point. They were a stand-in. The real conversation was always happening between you and an earlier version of yourself, the one that felt powerless or unseen or too late in the exact moment the story got written. Every time you argue with someone in your head, you're still arguing with a version of you that believed it deserved to lose. Maybe that's why the conversation never actually ends. Not because you're still trying to change their mind, but because a younger version of you is still standing trial, waiting for a verdict that never comes. And the moment you stop needing to defend that version of yourself, the courtroom finally goes quiet. If this helped you understand something about yourself, subscribe. Every week, we explore the psychology behind the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors most people never question.